So we're going to keep things rolling this morning with a truly impressive story of a group that rapidly innovated a slow integration process and achieved unprecedented success. Our next speaker was the founder and first Commodore of Task Force 59 and commander of Unmanned and AI integration for the US Navy. He's here to share that story, and I'll be asking him to stick around for a quick chat in the hot seat right afterwards. He is currently serving as the Chief Strategy Officer for Saab North America. Please welcome to the stage, Michael Brasser.
Astro, no. What you know about rolling down in the deep?
Well, it's great to be here in Denver at XPONENTIal 23. I have to tell you, I do feel a little bit like a fish out of water. I grew up on an island. I spent most of my childhood in the ocean. I spent my entire 26-year career in the Navy sailing the world's oceans with friends and allies. And for me, it's the sea that connects us all, powers the global economy, and now is primed for innovation. So if you'll oblige me, I just retired from the Navy, but I do have a sea story to share with you, a sea story of innovation. It's the story of Task Force 59. And the story actually begins in Brussels. I like to say that Task Force 59 was conceived in Brussels, but born in Bahrain. And it started with this initiative called the NATO Maritime Unmanned Systems Initiative, which was based on the premise, look, the oceans are massive, ships, submarines, and aircrafts are expensive. We have allies that aren't meeting their necessary requirements. Can these unmanned systems above, on, and below the water help close some capability gaps? And for the NATO MUSE initiative, we looked at it vertically from seabed to space, and then horizontally across allies and partners. And obviously, interoperability was a key component of the initiative. I was at the US mission to NATO at the time, and I helped launch and lead the initiative and actually advocated for the US to lead this initiative. And we got into the initiative, and we had a lot of great folks working on the opportunity space here. But what I soon realized is there was a bit of a lack of imagination, a lack of creativity. And just about that time, I watched this wonderful video by Amir Hussain called Innovating in the Age of Exponentials. I encourage you to Google that and take a look at it. But it kind of fitting here, we're at a conference called XPONENTIAL. And this was a video by Amir that recognized the technology we're dealing with is on an exponential trajectory, but much of our processes and ways of thinking were still linear. And so he had a bunch of advice in the video, but two things really stuck with me. One, get ideas from everywhere. Think outside your four walls. And in Brussels, they got the beautiful new headquarters at NATO, but it can be a bubble. So you need to get ideas outside your four walls. And then number two, work in diverse cross-functional teams. And as I kind of alluded to, while the NATO MUSE initiative team was great, super technical, wasn't quite the diversity that I thought we needed. So I created an innovation advisory board. And I built a team based on these two premises. Get ideas from everywhere and work in a cross-functional, diverse team. And if you look at this team, of course, we've got Amir on it, and Julie Angus. Julie Angus is the first woman to row across the ocean. She also is CEO of a company called Open Ocean Robotics. You got Peter Singer, well-known author of Ghost Fleet, Burn-In. You got Deep Chana, who's a professor at Imperial College of London, just newly named the managing director of NATO's Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, Diana. But also you got some really sort of non-traditional folks here. Sarah Traverso, marketing executive at Coca-Cola. Camille Le Provost, director for The Lion King in Paris. So this sort of group, looking at this opportunity, this challenge, from all these different angles, really sort of spurred some creativity that we just weren't seeing on the NATO MUSE initiative. And they were critical in helping to accelerate and scale that initiative. And we actually came up with a moonshot called the Digital Ocean, which I'll talk about a little bit later. This is us meeting in Brussels, and I want to talk about this gentleman here with his eyes closed and the little red flower there. That's David Burton. David Burton is a retired Commodore from the Royal Navy, just a real gentle, kind man. And just about the time that Admiral Cooper and I, the fleet commander for Fifth Fleet, were iterating on this idea of a task force in the Middle East that would leverage unmanned systems and artificial intelligence, I asked David for some advice. And you know, Brits, they love to talk, so I was sort of buckling up for a 3-hour conversation. What I got was a 3-minute conversation and 3 pieces of advice. He said, look, Michael, we're in a very, very challenging time. This is an important initiative you're about to launch. I need you to do these 3 things and do them very well. Number 1, I need you to be bold. Imagine a future that you want to create, unconstrained by the past. Number 2, and equally as important, Michael, we need you to be bold. Okay? And Michael, number 3, and perhaps most importantly, you must be bold. So I know the last lecture was kind of fast-paced. I'm a product of South Carolina public education, so I've summarized these points for you here in case you missed it. So I sort of internalized this advice, and it really stuck with me. And for me, that begins with a bold vision. And the entering argument for me was this idea of a digital ocean. So you're saying, what's a digital ocean? A digital ocean is an interconnected mesh of immediate data from seabed to space that leverages existing sensors on ships, submarines, and aircraft, land infrastructure, and new sensors on maritime robotics above, on, and below the water. Fuses that data and then exploits that data with machine learning and AI to go beyond maritime domain awareness into maritime domain cognition. An understanding of the maritime environment so rich that we are anticipating problems and preventing them from happening. So that was the ambition. That's a bunch of words. I've got a cool video here that will kind of help you visualize that. Now you see the value of a marketing executive from the #1 brand in the world on the team there. That was a huge asset and, you know, very important sort of communicating the vision. But a vision is great, but that, you know, as I was starting to talk to Admiral Cooper about this, he said we need to, you know, translate this into an executable plan. Why don't you put together a 2-page white paper for me? And so we did that. I actually reached out to my co-chair of the IAB, Sean Trevathan, the former first fleet robotics officer for the Royal Navy. We came up with a 2-page paper, but really what we were trying to do is contextualize it in the AOR that we were focused on. And we're talking about the Fifth Fleet AOR. It's the waters surrounding the Arabian Peninsula, a region that's of strategic, global, and economic importance. We're talking about the crossroads between Europe and Asia, through which most of the world's economy flows on the waters surrounding the Arabian Peninsula. There's 3 critical choke points, And we saw what happens when one of those gets closed when a motor vessel Evergreen went sideways in the Suez Canal, a $10 billion per day impact. It's also a problem-rich environment. You have one-way UAV attacks from Iran on merchant vessels. You have weapon shipments from Iran to the Houthis. You've got maritime crime. You've got maritime piracy, illegal fishing. So a problem-rich environment. Set that against gone are the day of the 2 carrier strike groups in the Arabian Gulf. You're just talking a handful of ships. So immediately, you start to see why these assets can help us get after some of the challenges we're facing in the region. So we convened, convened basically the world's leaders in unmanned and AI for a design sprint. This is July 2021. You can see Michael Stewart there, director for the CNO's Unmanned Task Force, writing on the window some bold thoughts. Great vision there. Bad news was that was permanent ink. So it's still there if you want to take a look there in Bahrain. And just a whole host of folks there. You can see Admiral Cooper in the bottom right there showing us, focusing us on operational problems. This was the main distinguishing point for Task Force 59. We were in the operational environment. We were the problem holders. We needed to solve those problems today, and that's why we look to dual-use commercial maritime robotics above, on, and below the water. When you invite people out to Bahrain in August, July, August, it's hot. It's not a destination. So for me, food is love. I wanted to show the love to the design team, so I had a little barbecue at the house. So a bold vision and a bold plan is great, but I'd like to quote the famous philosopher Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And we needed bold people that could take a few punches in the face, because what we're talking about here potentially is a disruption of the United States Navy. So we put together a rock star team, and we leveraged the Navy reserves to do this. You know, Michael Robbins here is on the Naval Reserves, and we actually tried to get him, but we're still working on that. But my deputy, his day job was CEO of a $1 billion cybersecurity company. That's Tom McAndrew in the top left there, okay? That's very helpful for a new startup, Task Force 59. Then you get a person like Elsa Kania there in the glasses that aren't in regulation in the bottom left. Elsa's working on her PhD at Harvard and has written a book called Fighting to Innovate on Chinese Innovation. Pretty good. Then you add Sophia Gross, a Forbes 30 under 30, working one of the original 300 at Snapchat, probably one of the best communicators you'll ever meet, and just a ton of energy and excitement. You had another Forbes 30 under 30, Sky Moore, who was working on the Hill for Seth Moulton. Before that was on the Defense Innovation Board, Harvard undergrad, Georgetown masters. You couple that with a guy like Ray Miller, this guy on the right, just coming off the waterfront in Bahrain. He was captain of a PC, had exchanged warning shots with the Iranians, knew the AOR very well, but actually knew the global AOR. He had, in his previous 4 years, he had served 700 days at sea, from the high north to the South China Sea, and as I mentioned most recently in Bahrain. So you get that team, kind of the IAB approach that we were talking about earlier, and then you get a fleet commander like Admiral Cooper. With Admiral Cooper, there is no say-do gap, okay? Admiral Cooper matches resource to priority in terms of people, time, and money. Admiral Cooper is a risk taker with a strong bias for action. So you get that team together, you get that bold vision, and let's go. That's my daughter in there at the commissioning of the task force. But a small task force of just 20, 25 people can't do this alone. So we employed what we call a team of teams approach across the triple helix, government, academia, and industry. Again, you see Mr. Stewart and I at Petra. We spent a lot of time together. He was our point of entry into the Pentagon. And lucky for us, he had the Pentagon wired for sound, and he was telling our story. It's a story of disruption, and he was telling it very well. so well that we got support from SecDef, CENTCOM, CNO. We had a lot of support, and it was very, very helpful from the top. We still had to fight the frozen middle, but that was something we were prepared to do. And then across academia, you see Sky and I there at NPS, at Stanford there with Steve Blank. We also worked with MIT, Johns Hopkins, Imperial College of London. Really, really, really talented folks helping us work on this. And then we partnered in a big way with industry. And we did that through the Defense Innovation Unit, because we were looking at dual-use commercial technologies. We did a large call to industry with DIU for a big event called Digital Horizon. We got over 100 responses, and ultimately we got best-in-breed robotics and artificial intelligence out to us in theater. And DIU was key for that. And then with regional and global partners, that's Colonel Hisham and I. He's the head of the Jordanian Navy. We're just opening up the JROC, the Jordanian Robotics Operations Center. And I say, you know, at Task Force 59, we run with scissors. He got a kick out of that. And then we're down in Australia for the big event called Autonomous Warrior. But, you know, my wife wasn't too happy about this one because for Digital Horizon, we asked about all of our industry partners to come over. There was about 70. But for us, this was a sign that I wanted to cook for. I wanted to serve our industry partners. And I actually made it people do push-ups if they called these guys vendors. I said, vendors sell popcorn and beer at baseball games, which, with all due respect, that's good stuff, all right? But these are our industry partners. They're in it with us. It's hot, it's sandy, it's salty. This is hard work. It's easy on a PowerPoint, hard in the real world. When stuff goes wrong, they have our back, and we have theirs. These are our industry partners. That's Ray Miller cutting the Digital Horizon cake with my daughter. My daughter loves Ray Miller. We all love Ray Miller. He's quite an innovative guy. He designed Digital Horizon. Talk about partnerships with a big P, with our regional partners. On the left, you have Sheikh Mubarak, grandson to the king of Kuwait. He just put on Admiral today. He's in the Coast Guard, the Kuwaiti Coast Guard. This is during Ramadan. This is a dinner called Iftar. This is when you break the fast for Ramadan. This is my family with his family in his kitchen, in his dining room. That's Colonel Hisham, again, in Jordan, my family with his family. These guys are like brothers to me. Want to know how I know that? Because brothers ask you to do the dishes. And this is me in Colonel Hisham's kitchen. What he didn't know was my first job was a dishwasher. So I knocked those out real quick, no problem. So there's been a lot of bold visions, a lot of bold people, but there hasn't been enough action. And we at Task Force 59 were doers. We wanted to get after it. Just one problem, we didn't have any robots. This was our first robot, which was low on autonomy, high on resilience. We'll kind of take those factors, but we needed some robots, and we needed them real quick. I just want to give you a sense of the pace we're talking here. So design sprint in July. We are a 2-page white paper in July. In September, we launched the task force. In October, we're doing our first exercise with Bahrain. In December, we're doing our second exercise with Jordan. In January of February 2022, we run the world's largest maritime unmanned systems exercise. A task force of 20 people with 4 months' experience. And I want to tell you that failure was very, very much a part of this process. And for us, we saw failure above success. So we thought you could be successful here and not do too much interesting stuff. We wanted to go above that and push up against failure and get on the other side of failure to discover new capability fast. And we learned a lot during those first 4 or 5 months. And we learned that we didn't have the data infrastructure we needed to truly support the machine learning and AI applications that we wanted to get after. So we built it. We learned, we iterated, we improved. I argue that next to what you're seeing in Ukraine, the capability acceleration that we had at Task Force 59 59 is unrivaled. Only rivaled by what you see in Ukraine. And that's enabled by these key components. End users with solution providers in the operational environment focused on solving real problems fast. Rapid iteration. Over the course of the 18 months I was there, we did 20 exercises globally, in Australia, off the coast of Portugal, on all three sides of the peninsula. That enables a pace of iteration, a pace of learning. We were seeing software changes within hours and days, hardware changes within weeks and months. We were pushing our industry partners to breaking point, and they were coming back with better capability. But for me, the most exciting thing about all of this is the convergence of a bunch of different emerging disruptive technologies. It's not just about the robots. It's about the resilient mesh networks. It's about the low Earth orbit satellites. It's about the data lake, the data infrastructure, cloud compute. It's about bringing that all together onto a single pane of glass that actually provides value to the end user. So we can enter that predictive space, so we can anticipate problems and prevent them from happening. We did 4 digital ocean prototypes during my time there. My CTO will tell you, no, we did 2 prototypes and we did 2 MVPs. This is ready to scale. We delivered the digital ocean. It's still early days. And for me, this picture on the left, this is the iconic photo for me of robotics and artificial intelligence at the tactical edge. That's Ray Miller on top of a hut on an island in the southern Red Sea. That's a grill that we borrowed from somebody, and a Silvus mesh radio setting up a mesh network to support operations in the southern Red Sea, okay, right next to where the Houthis operate. So I just finished, I had the good fortune of sort of wrapping up my tour at Task Force 59 in Aqaba, Jordan during IMX this past year. It was my final mission in the Navy. It was a real rewarding experience. You know, Sky and Soph came back actually Soph was on mission, and Sky, who's currently now the CTO at CENTCOM, came down for a visit. I just got to tell you, it's a really, really good feeling to go out there. Here are some of the numbers you'll see of what we accomplished. But what more than the numbers, Task Force 59 became a strategic lever. Okay? Keep in mind that we were battling the abandonment narrative, that the US was out of the Middle East. What we saw was all the innovation was happening in the Middle East, and our partners loved us. We were the cool guys, and they wanted to be a part of it. And our adversaries couldn't stop thinking about us. So 59 became a strategic lever. And Michael Stewart had he was the keynote at my change of command. I was really honored because he said this, and I'm a big fan of Lawrence of Arabia. He said it was kind of fitting that Michael would end his career there in Aqaba, where a small team of fighters came out of the desert from a direction nobody was expecting and changed the world. Now, I don't think we changed the world, but we definitely moved the needle. And I, in turn, passed on a little bit of advice to my good friend Colin Corridon, who relieved me on the 15th of March. I said, Colin, I just have 3 bits of advice for you, and I need you to listen. These are extraordinary times. There's a war in Europe, a rising concerns in the Pacific. I need you to be these 3 things. Number 1, I need you to be bolder. Number 2, and equally as important, Colin, I need you to be bolder. And number 3, Colin, you must be bolder. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Brasser. I'm former Commodore of Task Force 59.
Michael, thanks for being with us. Have a seat, please. I gotta say, I missed rehearsal for so I got to actually listen backstage,
Okay.
and I think what it impressed me most about this story, particularly from the DoD context, how much you emphasize people.
Yes.
And I think it was clear from the presentation, from your remarks, how critical that was, not just to the success, but how focal that was to everything that you did. A lot of success. What are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the team that we built. As you kind of alluded to, everybody likes to focus on the robots and artificial intelligence. For me, this was very much a human endeavor, and it required bold people, with a bold vision, doing bold things, taking a lot of risk. I think Admiral Cooper took a lot of risk. Yeah, I'm really, really proud of the team. And actually, one of the things that, thanks for bringing up that slide, that was most rewarding for me. This was soon after, I had left Task Force 59, and I was going back through the spaces, and it was just newly announced that I was going to Saab. And of course, when I walked into spaces, they said, "Hey, sorry, vendor in the spaces, vendor in the spaces," because they knew I hated that, and I had no power to make them do push-ups. But this was on the day that the task force did a Straits transit, and it was the culmination of everything we had worked on in those previous 18 months, operationalized in the real world, in one of the most challenging environments, the Straits of Hormuz, with lots of line actors in there, and they performed exceptionally. And then they went on, and the asset provided overwatch for a boarding. So it was everything we had worked on coming to life in the real world on a real mission, and so that was extremely rewarding, and that was actually my proudest moment, even though I wasn't in command, to see Colin and the team do that.
Love it when a plan comes together,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great capstone to an impressive career in the military. You're at Saab now. What's next?
Well, so, for me, I did consider staying in government, but I got this opportunity at Saab. For me, the value alignments were great, and for me, it just was a mission. Their mission is to keep people in society safe. I wanted to see what I could do in the private sector. I have no intent of slowing down. We've got some great capabilities at Saab, but I'm really looking forward to going to the next level. I think what you'll see from what I bring to the table is this intimacy across the triple helix. So you'll see really strong partnerships across government, academia, and industry. Ultimately, I think all of us want the same goal. We want to keep people safe, and we want to deter malign actors, and we need to do it fast. We're in danger of losing the next war. So.
I'm glad you're still on it, and even from the other side, that industry will continue to benefit from all your hard work and your experience. I know we teased doing a dance-off, and I've been advised by my team, because of the Achilles, I don't think it would be fair to you.
I was really pumped for the walk-up music. I just didn't want to embarrass my kids by dancing.
That's okay. Well,
do you want to do it, though? Do you want to?
No, I think what we should do instead, because I teased, we had T-shirts that we threw last year, and they wouldn't let me throw books yesterday.
Okay.
So if you were fortunate to get one of the signed books yesterday up in the hall, congratulations. Right now, I found some of these backstage. I thought, do you want to zing a couple?
Yeah, be happy to. All right.
Anybody still want a hat?
Anyone on a hat?
Huh? Yeah, front row, get him. Oh, that was a good spin.
All right. Anybody want a hat over here?
It swung the other way.
Oops.
Oh, that was a good throw. Oh.
Vertical takeoff.
10 points for getting it on somebody's head.
All right.
Michael, thanks so much for being with us.
All right.
Thanks so much.
All right, thanks.